Hi guys, today I'm going to do a tutorial. What I'm going to do is, as you see, there's a pile of fabric behind me and I'm going to use it to make a quilt. I'm filming this at the beginning. Now I'm starting to think I should be filming it at the end because I don't have a quilt to show you yet. It's just going to happen. So, some of the fabrics that I've chosen for my quilt are that guy. I have the same one in yellow. I'm going to do a little bit with this rose pattern. There's a couple others throughout this pile that I have already cut into squares, so I think that that should do fine, and I'm gonna actually show you what I do. So this is pretty much all of the things that I am using to make this quilt. So I've got some scissors, I've got a whole bunch of these. I did 4 inches by 6 inches, or 15 centimeters by about 10 centimeters. My rotary cutter, and I also used my ruler and my pen and my scissors just to get those squares to be exactly 4 by 6. After I cut out my pieces, pinned them and gave about 1 centimeter for a seam. Pin them all together like that. And then I took my straight stitch and I just sewed those together along the lines and then pressed them flat. And then I ironed the whole sheet so that it was nice and flat. All right, so when I'm pressing open my seams, the right way to press out a seam is to just press on it. And now that's where I'm working from. So I finished all of my strips like this. And what I've done is I've lined them up. Find the next strip in the pattern. So the next strip in the pattern should start with rose, go rose, brown, green, rose, brown, green, blue. There we go. See, as long as you keep these diagonals, it'll end up making it a lot easier to decide who goes next. So the one that's directly next, I put it right on top, and then I take my pins and I find the middle piece. So I'll find the middle piece and see how the seams directly overline. I'll do a little diagonal through all of them. Then I just keep doing that until I get to my ends. And now what I'm gonna go do is bring this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew just along this line from the one end to the other. And I'm just gonna line it up with the foot of my sewing machine. I don't really do an actual, like, organized sew. After the seam has been sewed, it sticks up straight like that. You can see all the other ones are nicely flat. So now what I'm gonna do is take it over to my ironing board and just press that whole seam down and flat. Following what I've already been doing, I'm going to iron the whole thing, just briefly, to make sure all of my seams are nice and flat. Now, all right, so you can see the difference now. That's nice and flat with all these other guys. And now that we've got that next row on, we can pin the next strip. Just do a diagonal poke through on there. Even though this makes it a little bit tedious because you have to be taking pins out, putting pins in all the time, the final result is totally worth it, A, and B, it actually speeds things up in the long run, because by doing these steps, you're kind of guaranteeing, or almost guaranteeing anyway, that you're gonna make no mistakes, and that everything that you actually sew is exactly what you mean to sew. Because when you do it this way, you have to double check your work like 18 times, just as part of the pinning. So after you've pinned it, you still look at it again and go, yeah, everything still matches up. Whereas if you just grabbed the next strip and started sewing, there's a chance that you might have the strip upside down, which would leave you with not the right pattern, or that you just pick up the wrong strip altogether. Kind of make sure that doesn't happen. All right, so now we're kind of getting somewhere. We've got pretty good size so far. I'm not really thinking this is gonna be a huge quilt, but that's okay. You can kind of see where it's gonna be. That quilt top is done. Nice and colorful and happy. Maybe I'll do 2 layers thick. That might be nice. Get that lined up on here. Give lots of space all around it. And then I will pin that down. Now, I'm going to just go down. I've sewn just a really basic way around this quilt. I'm gonna take my scissors and get it a little bit closer, maybe within just a couple of inches all the way around, or inch maybe. I don't really know measurements. Okay. All right, there we go. And now, basically what you can see what I did is on the back, now it just looks like this fabric, and then the front looks like my quilt. And I just did a rough stitch all the way around just so that it keeps it together. I cut a piece of my canvas muslin, cut a piece, did a quick iron of it, and now I'm going to pin my quilt top. Like that. I'm gonna start in the middle row. I'm gonna do all of the corners. So now that I've got all that pinned, I'm going to just stitch on top of everything. So through all 3 layers, you can see all attached. I'm gonna stitch through all 3 layers, starting in the middle, just going along the lines on top of all of this to go through everything. This is also a good time to go around and clip off any extra thread that shows through. Once you've sewn over top, it makes it a little bit more difficult, not impossible, but a little bit more difficult to get these threads out. And yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'll bring you to the sewing machine now. Put that one in first. Oops. And then once that's threaded, I'll show you what I'm gonna do. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is sew on the middle seam line here and just follow exactly on the line, straight down to the other end. Nicely centered on that line. That's the first line, and then I just have to do that 100 more times. All right, so now I've stitched along all of these lines, and I'm just gonna show you the back. As you can see, makes it a little clearer. I made these lines on the, this will be the back fabric. That'll be the front. Now I'm going to take my serger and I'm going to go along all these lines with it, which will cut off all this excess, and it'll also finish up that seam just so that make it a little bit easier to bind in the end. The whole quilt like that. I'm just going to leave the width of the foot from that seam all the way around, and it'll just bind it up. All right, so now that I've completely serged around the edge of my quilt, the edge is all finished all the way around with my serger, little baby quilt. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the binding to cover up that area. What I'm going to do is cut 3-inch wide strips, probably 3 of them, that are really long. I'm going to use them to cover up the serging. Got these long strips, and what I did next was I folded them in half and ironed it like that. And then I took the half after and ironed it so that I was left with a piece like that. I've got now a really long piece of binding. All right, so I'm pretty much done with the binding. I sewed the fabric all along the one side, and now what I'm doing is flipping the folded side over top. then pinning it in place. And I just have to finish just this little area, and then it'll be pinned right around all of the edges. And then I'm just gonna top stitch over this part, just top stitch there, and then that will pretty much finish up the quilt. I'm gonna grab one of my labels and get that started. Now, as you can see, I've pinned all the way around on this binding. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to take my little label, which I have here, and I'm gonna fold it in half. And then I usually put my labels near one of the corners. Just grab a pin and pin through there so I remember where I want to put it. I'm just gonna top stitch right here. I think I'll do a little zigzag stitch just to keep everything in place. And I'll take you to the sewing machine. You can see how that goes. And then I'm gonna choose a little zigzag stitch. Gonna make it just a little bit less wide. I'm gonna just follow along. Following along that line, I'm just gonna go all the way around. There's just a little line right on the foot of my machine right here. There's a little line, and basically what I'm doing is the line where the fabric meets the colored fabric, I am keeping that right on the middle of that line. So what I like to do is just get up to the corner, and then I turn. So far it's worked okay. There's the final quilt. Not huge, but it's cute. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. Start to finish, made a quilt. And now I feel a little bit more confident for that quilt teaching thing I'm gonna be doing, because now I know I can do it a little bit easier. So now that I've started small, which is good, I think, I'm going to try and make a few more of these. I really think these are great for gifts. I think that people love getting quilts so far. Both of the quilts I made before this were loved gifts. So I want to get like a full shot of it so you can see like the full size. But yeah, I'm going to be starting up some pretty exciting things in the next couple of weeks. So I wanted to see if I could get the filming part down, because it's hard. Sewing something is not as hard as filming yourself sewing something, because I just kept wanting to keep going, and if the battery died I had to take a break. And anyway, so if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs down. Regardless, comment, give me some feedback so I can know what I have to work on. And yeah, try and make a quilt, because it's fun. And now I have a little baby quilt. Maybe I'll make it into something for Thunder. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. What are we making?
The most epic ginger cookies ever.
The most epic ginger cookies ever. Okay, so what do we start with?